You went from like agency copywriter to agency owner in like the space of in what, like just what was the timeline?
It was about a year. I had all this experience like working with teams, seeing how agencies should be ran and how they shouldn't be ran. And it just made sense from there to start my own agency.
You know, what are some of the things you would say make a really good client, somebody that you'd want to work with?
The person making multiple six figures or like seven figures doesn't want to be on a bunch of meetings. They hate meetings too. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, just send me updates. As long as it's making money, like they don't care. We just over communicate. I think that's the biggest thing, is just over communication.
When I had a client that was asking for a lot of meetings, I realized that part of the reason they were asking for so many meetings was because I wasn't. If you don't give them your systems, they're going to put you in theirs. How do I create a system that gives them all the feedback loops that they need so that they don't need the meetings? I went from having 2 meetings a week with that client to like nothing overnight. I think a lot of the time, copywriters, they kind of set themselves up for a lot of the negative experiences that they have with clients just because.
But I felt a little robbed because I was like, I've spent all this time hustling, trying to get good at DR, and like there's people out here like making like 50K a month just from writing content for other people. I was like, what the heck? And I got angry. I was like, I've had enough of this. And sometimes you do need that kick in the ass of like, hey, these other people are doing it and you're not. We unfortunately are, you know, in a service-based industry where there are people that are going to outwork you, as sad as it is. So it's like, if you're passive, you're also like replaceable.
What are some of the things that you'll do as soon as possible to get them some wins and start outworking the other copywriters?
So one thing we like to do is we like.
Cool. So today we're here with Jasmine Pierce, one of the rising stars in the email dojo. And Jasmine's kindly agreed to chat with me today and share all of her secrets. She has been absolutely dominating, built a multi-six-figure agency and working with some of the top personal brands on Instagram with millions and millions of followers. And you serve your clients a lot more than just copy today, even though you just got started. When you did get started, you were just a copywriter, right? So yeah, it's really exciting to have you here.
No, yeah, thank you so much again, Matthew. I'm really excited to be on here and chat it up. So
yeah, let's do it. So tell me like a little bit about how you got into copywriting and, you know, the journey in the early days and like kind of the stuff that you had to do to get good.
yeah, so I've been writing copy for probably about 4 years now. And I originally got started writing copy back in like 2019, like right before COVID hit. And I was actually looking to go into media buying, surprisingly. And then I met my mentor at the time, who was a media buyer himself, and he was actually he started doing consulting for Jason Capital, which was pretty cool. And like any OG knows like who Jason Capital is, so it was like kind of a big deal, right? But he realized that I really liked to write, and he was like, well, you know, if you're going to learn a high income skill, you should definitely learn copywriting. And then so from there, we actually started a agency together. We had just a few clients. And then COVID hit, we lost basically all our clients. And then I was pretty much like solo dolo after that. I was doing a lot of like one-off projects. I wasn't really having like a sustainable income with copywriting. So it was like very much that catch-22 that I think a lot of writers fall into. And then I ended up doing more contracting work for like different agencies in different niches. Like I was writing copy for like the crypto niche, and then I was writing copy for like coaching, but no matter what niche I wrote for, like it was always coaching. So I just felt like that was like my niche, and I just loved how personal you could get with the copy.
Yeah, I also write in that niche, right? So I also really like the coaching niche and personal brands because it's a lot more about the voice and not always just about like very intense direct response. sales copy. You know, you can spend a lot more time talking about the person. And I enjoy that more because it's more of a, it feels like more of a creative way to write than to just write direct response copy. That's like very much just for the sale. But how did you, like after COVID, okay, so you lost the clients. After COVID, how did you get by, like bouncing from one gig to another? Like what was your process for like not, I don't know, throwing in the towel and doing something else?
Yeah, so I essentially found this agency that was ran by one of my really good friends, Michael Kelly. I think you might know who he is, but
I do, yeah.
yeah, so I found his agency. They were looking for a full-time copywriter. And it was just like one of those things where, I felt like I needed some stability with my income. And I also felt like I had a lot to learn, right? Because as you get deeper into this, you start to realize it's not just about writing good copy, it's also about like the strategy of the copy. Especially when it comes to emails, because each email is, essentially a different way to pitch someone on the offer, right? And lead them to that
Mm-hmm.
sales page. So it was through that where I was able to get some stability. And then I kind of like went off on my own again, in a sense. And I actually landed Brian Mark as a client.
Nice.
And yeah, it was super cool. It was really cool. I'll never forget like, and Brian is just like, he's such an informal dude. Like I remember I sent him in like some samples, and he emailed me back and he was like, to F and Shay, and I thought it was like an automated email reply. I was like, there's no way this guy like talks like this, and it's business is doing like multiple millions a year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I was really taken back. And then yeah, I landed him as a client. I did a really good job for him in terms of like the event promo that we ran after I landed him as like a retainer client, and then he wanted me to take over his entire marketing. Uh,
Wow, just like that.
yeah, it was pretty crazy. So and then from there, I was like, you know what? I'm making this guy a lot of money and I've learned a lot too, right? Like I'll always be grateful for that opportunity, but I was like, I still have that thing inside me where it's like I want my own like fully fledged business, and I think it's always been an agency, whether or not I knew that, but I had all this experience like working with teams, seeing how agencies should be ran and how they shouldn't be ran.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made sense from there to start my own agency. So,
Mm. I think there's a lot of people that have agencies that they've got bad clients, so they have the impression that agency work is like not an experience that they, like it's not as great as the hype. But you only need one client. Like you say his name is Brian Marks, right? Brian Mark?
yeah, Brian Mark. Yeah.
Brian Mark, yeah. So like Brian Mark, he's a great client. If you get to work with somebody like that, you get one good client like that, it shifts your perspective on like the way that you can run a service business.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, I don't want to have a client, I don't want to have this large business. I don't want to work with 5, 6 different people. It's like, well, if they're all great people like Brian Mark, then it's quite a nice experience to actually run an agency or to work with some great people. And I think that a lot of people that have had nightmare clients, they don't have that perspective. So like, I'm curious, what are some of the things you would say make a really good client, somebody that you'd want to work with, like over the long run, that you look for in yeah, potential partners?
Yeah. So I would say when it comes to like screening potential clients, especially with the agency, like, we've been very picky. So we don't work with anyone that has like below 200,000 followers on IG, because we want someone that's very invested in their brand. And we also look at the quality of content they're posting too. Because, I think you know that there's a lot of like content creators out there that aren't making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, So that's
Hmm.
that's two things. We also look for someone who, um, you know, is making at least like multiple six figures. Obviously, we prefer seven because what I've learned is like when you are able to come with clients with like previous results and you can essentially be like, hey, I've done this for, you know, XYZ. These are my rates. They don't really flinch and they're not going to micromanage you because it's all about like where they're personally at in the business because someone obviously that's like not bringing in as much money, a 4K retainer for email is going to be like they're going to be more on your butt, so to speak,
Yeah, yeah.
about things, and it's going to be a headache, right? So I
Hmm.
would say, you know, content, where their brand's at, you know, currently and like their revenue is all super important. So
That's interesting, especially the part about like having high quality content on their profile. Because I think a lot of copywriters, they're thinking to themselves, like, they got to have not so good content. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to find a way to add value to them. Like, I mean, I definitely used to think that way when I first started. It was like, you got to try find a brand or business that's like not doing too well from the copy side of things. Cause it's like, that's the place you can help people. But it's like the opposite, isn't it? Because it's like the brands that are like that, they don't understand copy or appreciate copy or pay premium for copy. And it's like counterintuitive that if you actually have a business that has high quality copy already, that it's like that is actually that they've almost done that they've done the screening for you. It's like, yeah, they've got good copy, they've got a system in place, they appreciate the copy, like, yeah, huh, interesting. What else do you what about when you're actually working with the client, like on a weekly basis, like meetings and like other things you like when you work with clients?
yeah, so I personally like do not like meetings. I like connecting with clients, but I'd rather connect in like let's go get dinner or something like that,
Hmm.
or like
Hmm.
let me like fly out to you and like let's just keep building rapport that way because to be honest, like our clients are like our friends. Like we
Uh,
will, yeah, like we will joke around with them, like, but we at the end of the day, you know, we fulfill and we keep our end of the bargain. So it's like it's a very strong relationship. But when it comes to things on like week to week basis, you know, um, we minimize meetings as much as possible unless we're in like a pretty like heavy project. So like if we're doing like an event promo, you know,
mm,
we'll
yeah.
meet with them like once a week to, you know, let them know like here's like the checklist of things that have been done. We send them updates throughout the week. But again, you know, it's like when you find those clients that like trust you and they're just easygoing, I found that like sending them updates in Slack is like more than enough because they're busy too, right?
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
that's the one thing too is like the person making multiple six figures or like seven figures doesn't want to be on a bunch of meetings. They hate meetings too. So it's like
Mm, yeah.
it's like, yeah, just send me updates in Slack, like as long as you do that and you know, send reports as long as it's making money, like they don't care. And you know, obviously like when we first onboard the client, it's a little different because we'll do a little more while still keeping like boundaries. But yeah, it's I would say, you know, the workload is like really easy. So, and we just,
Hmm.
yeah, we just over communicate. I think that's the biggest thing is just over communication. So,
When I had a client that was asking for a lot of meetings back in the day, I realized that part of the reason they were asking for so many meetings was because I wasn't giving them enough information about the work I was doing, you know. And it's like, if you don't give them your systems, they're going to put you in theirs. That's sort of the takeaway I realized. And it's like, well, how do I create a system that gives them all the feedback loops that they need so that they don't need the meetings? And I did that. And then like I realized like, okay, they want all these meetings with me. So I gave them all these feedback loops and I gave them this weekly report on a Monday for 15 minutes. And suddenly they like backed off and they were like, yeah, no, that's all we need. Like we're happy with that. Like 15-minute just give us a report every Monday, just as long as you give it to us before our call with the whole team so that we can have a look at it. And I went from having 2 meetings a week with that client to like nothing overnight. Like no meetings. We had like one-on-one check every 2 months or something. But they had all the information that they needed in the report. They would ask me questions in Slack and I would just reply. And so I think a lot of the time, copywriters, especially copywriters, they kind of set themselves up for a lot of the negative experiences that they have with clients just because they're very passive. They're like kind of waiting for the client to give them instructions. And I think when you transition into a business owner like you have now, where you run your own agency, it becomes a little bit more obvious that, all along you need to be doing that. But I think copywriters, they're like almost wearing an employee hat sometimes. And that's why they're like, oh, like kind of waiting for instructions. Like, well, of course you're going to get put in 5 meetings if you're waiting for instructions. Like if you treat this as like, I'm a professional contractor, like I deliver this, this, and this, and here's how I work with my clients. If you set that expectation up front, you'd be surprised how many businesses actually will like work with you according to the way you like to work, and yeah.
No, 100%. And that's a really big thing too, because you can be a great copywriter, but if you're passive, you're also like replaceable, because there are a lot of copywriters out there, and there's not a lot of good copywriters, but that's because like the good copywriters are working with the good brands, right? And we unfortunately are, in a service-based industry where there are people that are going to outwork you, as sad as it is. So it's like you need to make sure that like you do everything to have the biggest impact on the client.
So when you get started with a client for the first time, like what are some of the things that you'll do as soon as possible to get them some wins and start outworking the other copywriters?
So one thing we like to do is we like to do like just an overall diagnostic of like their core offer, and then like if they have any other offers they're running. We'll really take a look at the back end. So like one thing we've noticed is like a lot of these coaches, they have a really solid like front end offer, but then on the back end there's no there's no automation to keep the list clean. Maybe they have a free trial offer, but there's no upsell sequence on the back end to sell them into like the actual paid part of the offer. It's so like for instance, we have a client right now. She has her own app, and then it has a 7-day free trial, which is cool, right? But there's no sequence on the back end to make sure that people are actually sending into either the monthly or annual subscription. So we really try to do our due diligence and optimize things, tweak things, but again, like staying within boundaries, right? Like we're never going to build an entire funnel for free unless we're taking a percentage of it, right? But this client that we just launched a lead magnet for, I wasn't planning on upselling people into the app, but I was like, you know what, I want to get her a quick win. So I just put an upsell page into the funnel, and I was like, okay, let's just see how it goes. Like worst comes to worst, like it just doesn't even convert. And like we gave it our best shot. But we did it, and it actually converted pretty well.
Nice.
So, and she was happy about it because she got an ROI within the first 30 days of working with us. And it wasn't even a part of our original agreement. So, and it wasn't like it was a huge lift for us because, the upsell page probably took, an hour and 30 minutes to write. And then we just added an extra page to the funnel. So
I think a lot of people want to do that kind of thing for their clients, but they're not able to get the client to, I don't know, give them the free rein to go and do something. How do you actually go and like set up a partnership with the client where you're, seeing things as two people working on this project together and not like, waiting for them to give you instructions? Like, how did you actually negotiate to do that kind of work and get the client to say, oh yeah, great, go build me a whole new, part of my business?
yeah, so that's kind of one thing where when you've been in this industry long enough and you have results, obviously people trust you more. And what I've noticed too is like when you come from the frame of being a growth partner, because that's essentially what we do. Like we do the content, we do the emails, but our entire goal is percentage-based deals. So when we come in and they know that like, hey, we're working off a percentage, they trust us more because there's really no risk to them. And especially with these big creators who, have made it to a certain income amount a month and they want to scale, they look at us as the trusted person to help them do that. Um, even if
Mm.
it's even if it's like adding an extra 70K, like most of these creators haven't even made that much. But it's also too like making the right relationships. So networking has also been a really big part of it for us.
So
So
there's a lot of work that goes into this before you even actually sign the client up. It's like the positioning, the relationship, like you said, like you're getting an actual referral, and then also the way you're structuring the deal. Okay, yeah, it makes sense. Is there a way that I mean, do you frame yourself like on the call and it's like, hey, we're growth partners here, like you, or do you say that you're an agency?
yeah, so it's as much as I'd like everything to be clear cut, it's hard, right? Because
Mm.
when you're running an agency, even as like a freelancer, it's like you get all these opportunities with different types of clients. So it's like it's difficult, right? Like we're
Mm.
in the talks with like um obviously like Bedros' company. So it's like it's hard because it's like we're not going to position ourselves as like a growth partner in that sense. But like when it comes to certain clients who need that aspect, like that's where we come in and we're like,
Mm.
hey, we don't want to just write your emails. Like that's cool, you need help with that, but like we want to come in and actually build you an offer and help you scale. And a lot of the times it's like, again, they have nothing to lose. And we've worked with really good brands in the past because that's one thing about having this agency is like it's not just my credibility, it's also like my business partner's credibility too. So
Mm.
that's where we come together and we have this huge portfolio of past work and past clients, and we're not essentially starting from scratch. Like I think if we were starting this from scratch, like there would definitely be there would definitely be a lot more learning curves, but because we have past experience, like we're able to come in and grow and grow at a fast rate. So
Yeah, that makes sense because when I look back on some of the work I've done, like my most like top paying clients are not always the biggest clients. What ended up happening for me is I worked with some of the biggest businesses, like biggest coaching, businesses, personal brands with massive millions of followers on YouTube and on a few other platforms and millions a month and ads and whatever. And I worked with them. I didn't get the best deal with them because they're like this massive company. I would just be working as like, I'll just do the thing that they asked me for. But afterwards, I'm able to leverage that authority. Like, hey, I worked with so and so. I learned this and that. I did this and that. Then with a business that aspires to get to that level, they're a lot more flexible and they're like, all right, well, we'll work together in like a more of a like a partnership sort of way, and we'll give you a percentage or we'll give you the premium deal that you're asking for. So yeah, I think that makes sense for me because that seems to be the same way as how it went for me. I'd get paid less for the big businesses, get the experience, get the numbers, and then once I know how to do it, then it's like you're almost in terms of positioning with them, they're not the person that's on a pedestal. It's like you guys are equal because, hey, this person makes $1 million a year, but you've worked with people that make $10 million a year and you know their systems. So like you're coming to help them. You're coming down to their level in a sense as well. Like maybe you don't, they have a take home that's different to you, but the problems that you've solved problems at a higher level or higher scale than their problems right now. So there's like another extra level of trust. And I think for copywriters, that's a really good way to position yourself when you get to that place where you can come in and say like, hey, yeah, you might have the $1 million business, but like I've solved problems that you haven't even got to yet with my previous clients. Like the positioning is very like you're looking at things equally when you're solving a problem instead of like comparing based on income levels. Because I think copywriters get intimidated by that. They're like, oh wow, I'm talking to somebody that makes $1 million a year. I just make $5,000 a month. It's like, well, yes, but if you're both solving the same problem together, you're actually equal. You can create the equal positioning.
yeah, that's a really big thing, and that's something I wasn't even aware of until I started working with Brian Mark because it was like it was super intimidating for me. And um through that role, like I had someone making millions trusting me with their marketing. Like that's
Mm.
huge, you know? And that's a position I had never like been in before. And so like really stepping in there and having someone like that see me as an equal, I was so taken back, you know? And
Hmm.
it was a really good experience, you know, like you learn a lot too. And even like we flew out to LA together to do kind of like a meeting for the business in the beginning of the year. And just being around him too, like in person, it's like you start to just realize, you know what, like these people are human too.
Yep.
And and they're like, you know, again, like they're entrepreneurs and you're an entrepreneur. So it's like, it's not, you guys are maybe in different places in your journey, but you're still, you know, you're still both trying to do somewhat of the same thing, right? Because a lot of these guys have had to be like what I call a full stack entrepreneur, which is someone who's good at sales, marketing, systems, and all of that stuff. Because they've had to build their entire like coaching business from scratch. So it's cool stuff. Yeah, it's really interesting. Um, you know, just like on that note, I never imagined that I would be working in-house as a marketing director. Um, but it was probably like the best experience ever that I've had.
Really. Mm.
Yeah, it was a really good experience. It was a lot of work. But I learned how high vibrational people like that think and how they run their business. And I also learned how to just become a better like entrepreneur myself, honestly.
Mm.
Because I think like a lot of times copywriters are like, I'm just a copywriter. You know, I just want to make a lot of money like writing
Hmm.
copy. And I think that I think it can work if you want to be like a Stefan Georgi, like or an
Yeah.
Ed Bray. Like I think that can work. Um, but even still to that point, like, you know, you're not just a copywriter. Like in a like you are still like a business owner and like you still need to have
Hmm.
some of those same skills and you know, unless you're like really good at copy, it's it's gonna be like again, kind of like what you tell people in the dojo, like it's not gonna be like an overnight thing. Like you're not just gonna wake up the next day and like, you know, have four clients paying you 5K a month. And if you do, it's gonna be a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. You'll have to learn a lot of skills for sure.
Yeah. So on top of copy. And it's never just copy. It is a lot of strategy.
What was it like offering to do work that you hadn't done before, like after you were writing copy and now saying, I'm willing to do that project that's not copy, or like how did that happen where you suddenly started doing more than just the copy?
Well, I came in with an entire roadmap for the promo. I had like an actual marketing calendar.
Okay.
And I remember we were on the call and he was like, "Oh." Like kind of like this is good, you know, because he was like, no
Mm.
one's ever done this because he he is just someone that really cares about his business and he didn't really like to give control over to anyone else, rightfully so. So he was doing the marketing and the sales. So I came in and I had a full plan for the promo. I think it was what we made 72 grand in 48 hours after the tickets launched, which was pretty good. It was for an in-person event. And he was kind of like, oh shit, you know,
That was good.
like,
Yeah.
so yeah. So it was
Mm.
like, it wasn't like 100K launch, but it was still pretty good. And, um, I remember like we kind of we it was difficult at first, I think, because again, like he worked really hard on his business and he's a really good marketer, you know. And so giving control over to someone else, it was like I think it was a little difficult and it was never my intention to take over. But that's what happened. And
Mm.
I'm super grateful for it. Um but it was just kind of like I came in with a plan. I did more than what other freelancers did, because I think he had been burned in the past where freelancers kind of just did the bare minimum or they would like ghost. And I stuck through the entire thing, and I was there. I think the day before we launched, I was there with the COO helping her test the funnel at like 7 p.m. on like a Saturday or something like that. So it was like he saw that I was committed to the success of the project.
So you took initiative, you went the extra mile for them as well, and you just genuinely cared about the project. And I think from that, it's like, wow, somebody is leading this and I didn't have to ask them to lead it. That's the kind of person I want to actually put in a position where they can lead. So then what? He just gave you more work and started to ask you if you'd be open to doing more than just a copy?
Yeah, so he was like, he was like, I want to have a conversation with you. He sent me a voice memo over Messenger. He was like, yo.
Yeah.
He was like, I just talked to my COO, like, do you want to hop on the team? And I was like, what? Because this was like the old Jasmine who used to get really anxious about working with like high profile clients, right? So I was like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, like, is he upset? Like, you know, and it was just, it was so cool. And actually, like, being on that team too, was just like a super cool experience. Like, we genuinely just felt like a family. And I mean, I'm transitioning out of the role now, but, um, it is rare to find coaches like that who care about their team. I think a lot of coaches will say they care about their team, they pay their team well, but behind closed doors, like they really don't. And so
Mm.
actually to be with people who are genuine and share my values, and again, working with like millionaires and like literally calling them my friends it was just such a cool experience, and I learned so much from them.
Wow. Well, how did you go from being like anxious about working with these people, besides of course meeting with them? Like, was there something you did to develop your skill, or something that you did other than, yeah, like other than hanging out with them, that helps you like work through that and be more comfortable talking with millionaires?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that helped me was just like a mindset shift. And it was when I went through, I forgot which module it was, but it was in the email dojo. And I remember you had said something, you were like, if worst case scenario, if something doesn't work out with a client, like what they're just gonna, you guys are just gonna part ways, and like that's gonna be it. It's like thinking, going from like that catastrophe mindset of like, oh, if this doesn't convert, then like I'm gonna lose this client, and then everything's gonna fall
Mhm.
to the ground, and like I'm gonna have to start asking for coins near the highway. Like,
Yeah.
it was that small shift of like it's not the end of the world, and becoming like detached from the outcome, but still caring about the project.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's like looking at that worst case and being like, you know what? It's not as, like, you like play it out in your head, like realistically look at it. It's not that bad. And something else I said, I don't know if this was something that also was in the video you were watching, but maybe for someone watching this, I said that you got to think about like, well, okay, if you didn't solve the problem and they let you go, they still have the problem to solve. Like, they still got to solve the thing. So like, if they don't fill up a live event, okay, they still have a live event to fill. So if it doesn't work with you the first time, like, okay, they might just try something else. But like, to say, okay, well, this is not going to work between us, we're going to like find somebody else to do this project. It's like, there's a lot of work. It's going to take 3 months to bring in a talented person. If you're lucky, it's going to take 3 months to find a talented person. So a lot of business owners, the reason that they're burned and that they're scared and that they're like resistant to hiring, in the early days, is just because they know how much work it actually takes to bring in somebody that's actually going to take the thing and do it properly. So if you're that person and you've got a pretty good track record and things don't work out, the worst case is usually that everybody gets upset for a day that nothing worked out, as it should be. It's like, it's appropriate to be upset if something doesn't work. And then what? Well, we're just going to figure out the next step. We're just going to figure out how to fix it, make it better. And like, who better to do that with than with the team that tried the first time? Like, why would you try with different people, you know? So I always feel like it's strange that people think that like, if I mess up this project, it's all over for me, you know? I think that might be an experience from nightmare clients. It's like, you know, there was a copywriter I was coaching once. They had a nightmare client. This client, oh my gosh, it was so bad. It was like, this client was like working in a corporate job. She had like a $100,000 a year salary, but she was trying to build like some coaching thing to help people, like a career coach or something. And she was in, it looked great on the surface, but behind the scenes, she had put in like $60,000 she had burned on ads. She had spent like $50,000 with some coaches that hadn't helped her. She like remortgaged her house. She had kids. And this poor copywriter is like, yeah, no, it's just like this poor copywriter is like, I don't know how to make this funnel work. What do I do, Matt? And like showed me the page, the funnel. And I'm like, look, I'm sorry, there's no way you're going to fix this page. This offer is not good. Like, doesn't matter how much you rewrite this. Like, you need to come in there and do like a full rebuild of everything. And that's going to cost them 25 grand. And she doesn't have 25 grand. She's on her last dollar. Like, the best thing you could do is, I mean, either refund her and like just call it quits, but like, you know. So I think a lot of copywriters, they get that experience maybe from like 1 or 2 clients they get on Fiverr and then project it to the big clients. But like the successful people, they've been through they've made mistakes in business. They've had events flop. They've had programs not work out. So like they're a lot more, not relaxed, but they have a more, I think they usually have a more balanced expectation of what turns out. Like when you said that you filled an event in 48 hours, it was like 70 grand sales. That's pretty impressive because a live event in person, to fill up a live event, it's like, it's not just the money. They have to fly there. They have to book tickets there. They have to get the hotel. They have to take time out of their day. Like filling live events are some of the hardest events to like do marketing for. Like I'm like against those almost always. I'm like, no. Like you have to have already proven to fill this event before I'm going to do this event for you, like to fill up a brand. So was it like the first time that they had done this kind of live event?
No, so it was
No, there you go.
it
No.
was the third, yeah, it was the third time, but I think what had happened in the past is they had relied a lot on like scarcity and FOMO because they only had 50 seats available. And then now it was like they had 300. So it was definitely like more of a lift because usually in the past, you know, they'd sell those seats in like 24 hours, 50 seats, you know,
Yeah,
like
of
people
course.
that want
Yeah.
to like see you in person and like have a mastermind, like, yeah, 100%. 300, yeah, definitely more of like a lift.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
even still though, like I remember like it was one of my wins that I had outside of like agency work that I had done with Michael because um you know, I think too when you're in an agency, like you do get a lot of experience, and I do think it is invaluable because without that experience, I would have never been able to go and like work with Brian Mark because I didn't know anything, right?
Mm.
Um, so that was like my first big win outside of like working with Michael on different projects and stuff like that. Because I had written promos for Coach Michael Burt. I think you knew that. And you and I like
Hmm.
crossed paths. I think you read my emails or something like that.
Yeah. We were working for a client, and then you actually did a joint venture promotion for them through an agency, and I was reviewing the emails, and I was like, you know, I'm like telling my client, I'm like, yeah, he's on, not bad, you know, because I was usually writing the emails. You guys were stepping on my turf there, and I was like, oh, that's
Yeah.
fine, you know. But like, I really liked the email so much. I was like, well, I hope that they can do more for us because they were like the amount of time that you put into the bullets. I remember like when I read the emails, there were like 15 bullets, and I was like, okay, like this copywriter like did the research and they like watched the testimonials and they like studied the offer. They like went deep because the amount of specificity in those bullets was like, I was like, okay, this is stuff I haven't even studied for the client I've been working with for 6 months. I felt a little bit like, whoa, okay, I better like up my game here because, you know, this is some good stuff. So yeah, no, I can definitely see that skill transferred into the work that you must have done after that, you know, because yeah, like, I mean, working with agencies, you must have done like a lot of copy every single day as well, right? Like,
Yeah, so I mean, when we were busy, we were busy. When we weren't busy, we weren't busy. So it was like, it was pretty much like a Hail Mary, like all the work just came down at once. Um,
hmm
but it was super cool because it was like, again, like that was when I was able to really get wins because I had a lot of reps and I felt more relaxed a little bit because my income wasn't so dependent on results because I knew like at the end of the day, like I'm still going to have money coming in, which I feel like
hmm
is every copywriter's like biggest thing on their mind is like, where's my next client coming from? And so it was it was nice. Like the promo we did for Coach Michael Burt, um, that funnel has generated over like 3 million in sales to date, and I wrote it. So it was like,
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah, it was super cool. I was like, okay, like I guess I do know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think everybody has that with like with the copy that they write. Like before when you're anxious and not sure about your results, and then that first time that you really, it's like you work with a certain client, you do a certain project that you know 100% like that project is really, it's your copy. You create that result. Then it's like after that the confidence is there. I remember I wrote an email sequence for a upsell, for a mastermind upsell. It was like a high ticket, and then there was like a high ticket inner circle backend. And I remember writing the email. I wrote the email copy for the upsell, and there was a lot of people that bought from that email sequence, like follow up emails, like so many people, like hundreds of thousands of dollars from that upsell sequence. And when I remember writing that sequence, it was one of my first sequences I wrote, and a lot of it was story emails. So it was like story email upsell, like selling through emails, through story emails. It's like I felt like, wow, this is my copy, because when you write a promo email, it's very templatized. You can usually like borrow it from a different sequence, but the story emails were very much me writing the email, you know? And I remember like ever since then, I always felt very, very comfortable writing story copy and like story emails. I always felt like I know what I'm doing, because you get that result once, then the next time you write copy, story copy, like if it doesn't work as well, you're like, it's probably not the copy. Like I did it last time, it works fine. I got a feeling, oh, we need to have a look at that sales page that so and so wrote, or the offer, or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's like story emails are so powerful. They're one of the best emails you can write because they're entertaining and everyone wants to read a
Mm.
story. Nobody wants to get hard pitched in their inbox.
Yeah, yeah, it gets
You
boring, right?
know,
Yeah.
it gets boring and people tune you out. Like I remember my first story email that actually converted, well, it wasn't even for a promo, but I wrote a story about like Alex Hermosi, and it did really well for a low ticket offer that we were pushing it to. And I was like, okay, I
Hmm.
see. I see, I do know what I'm doing again. But
Yeah.
it's those small wins too, right? They give you the confidence to keep going, which is something you really, really need in this industry because marketing is hard. Like it's fun and it's rewarding because it feels like gambling. You get like dopamine hits, right? But
Yeah.
it is hard. Um, so
hmm
yeah.
I used to have a list. I mean, I don't use it as much now because it's kind of become like internal at this point. But the first few years, I used to write down all my wins, because I would get a bit uncomfortable and nervous about some project that someone asked me to do. And so I would look at my list of accomplishments and be like, okay, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've achieved that, I've achieved that. I can do this, like it would help me a little bit to just feel like, yeah, like looking at all those wins, saying like, yeah, if I did all those other things, like I'm pretty sure I can, get on this call in front of 50 millionaire business owners and share secrets about copywriting with them. Like, oh, I can't do that. But then it's like, you look at your list. So that might be something that someone watching this could benefit, or listening could, write a list of some of your accomplishments and keep stacking it, keep adding to that list some of the things you've done. And especially like after a few years, it starts to become really impressive. It's another thing you should do is also take photos and screenshots of like all the wins and success stories, even if you don't post it anywhere, just for your own collection. Because the amount of times that you need that kind of stuff to just look at to remind yourself of all the wins, because it's like you have one bad time, you have one bad experience with a project. I don't know if this has happened to you, but it's like, like suddenly you really doubt yourself. Because I had a project that just didn't work. It didn't work, couldn't fix the list, it couldn't fix their email marketing, they weren't making money, and they were like, we're gonna have to go find somebody else. And I was like broken. I was like, oh man, like I really messed that up. Like I didn't do it. I must have made a mistake. I couldn't fix it. It's like one loss versus like the 25 wins of all the other times I've done it correctly. But I'm so focused on the one loss. I'm like, man, I'm not good at this. And then it's like, fortunately, I actually found out that it was the list, because the next person also couldn't fix it. so I was like, okay, good, it wasn't me, But sometimes you don't know, right? I mean, if you're a copywriter, you get fired or something, you might have no idea that it's like it's nothing to do with you. It's like the business just it's just didn't work out,
Yeah, well, that's why you need that's why you need a mentor. Like, to be honest, I've had like mentors. I've never had like a paid mentor until you. And I think if I would have done that, I would have been so much further along. But I wouldn't take it back, because I learned
Yeah.
lessons and everything happens for a reason. But that's where it's like, yeah, you need someone to look over your copy because you don't know if it's good or bad. And it genuinely could be the list. Like I've had that happen personally before where I'm like, I just had like loss after loss, and I was like getting so down on myself, and I was like, I'm not a good
Mm-hmm.
copywriter, like I should just stop, and then it's like come to find out like the list is just it's just not it's not working. But I think
Mm.
like to what you said, looking at your wins is so important because at the end of the day, we are entrepreneurs. And I think a lot of us are so focused on the future and like looking forward that we don't take the time to celebrate those wins. Like we don't need to go party out on a yacht, but like
Yeah.
we should definitely, like give ourselves a pat on the back and be like, you know what, this was good. Like enjoy it. Cause I know for me, like I don't know about you, but I would just think so forward into the future that it was like I was so numb to my wins. Like I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, like 72K launch, like yeah, whatever. Like
It
I
wasn't
could
a
have done
hundred.
more. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
it wasn't 100, like, you know, but the client's like over here happy and I'm like, well, I'm happy you're happy. That kind
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you need to. I'm with you. I think we do numb the wins, because it's like our industry, especially the people that we work with, they're like so vision focused. They're like, oh, like we're gonna do this now, and we're gonna do this now, and we're gonna do this now, and we're gonna hit this number, we're gonna hit this number. And I mean, some of the startups I've worked with, they create some, projected targets that they want to hit. They're like extremely aggressive, like growing at 10% per month. That's fast. That's like double. It's more than doubling every year. It's a lot of work to do that. If you're like $2 million now, next year you're gonna get 4 million, 8 million, and then some of them are like 10xing because they follow Grant. So like they follow Grant Cardone, and they're like, all right, we hit 2 million this year. Like, how do we hit like 15 next year? And it's like, oh, I don't. I mean, I don't know if you quite know what that's gonna look like. You're gonna have to have like 40 more people on your team and stuff, whatever it is. So yeah, I think we do. I think we do as copywriters, like kind of dismiss our wins sometimes. But tell me, like okay, so you started like mostly getting the stability as a copywriter and like really solidifying your foundation in the agency work. Then you did more stuff, and then you actually became like an agency owner. So you went from like agency copywriter to agency owner in like the space of in what, like just a year or two? What was the timeline?
oh, wow. It was about a year. It was
Yeah.
because yeah, I'd done that. And I think what like really hit me was like I joined Email Dojo because I knew that I didn't want to stay at PT Dom as much as I loved it and I loved the people. I just knew that like it wasn't gonna give me the life that I wanted for me and my family and my mom. So it was like, okay, where do I go from here? Email Dojo, cool. Gonna sign up. I'm gonna learn a lot and I'm gonna, everything's gonna work out. Well, then I started going through the modules and I started thinking about it and I was like, I don't want to have my own email marketing agency, like, or like do all this work by myself. not because I'm lazy, but because I'm very like, I just enjoy working with people. I love like collaboration, and that's one of the reasons why I joined the team at PT Domination, because I love working with people. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, I know that I want to start an agency, and I just don't know like what it would be. And so everything just kind of fell into place. I obviously, like, I had the emails down, I had like direct response fundamentals down. So like that was no problem. I had met my business partner who at the time actually introduced me to a whole other side of like entrepreneurship, which was like social media account growth. And I think it was like one of those things where it's like there's been a lot of scammers in that side. So it was like something I always kind of like disregarded until, you know, I was watching like a video of this guy, Dakota Robertson, which I don't know if these names ring a bell to you, but he's really good
Mm-hmm.
friends with I'm trying to think of what his name. He's out here in Arizona. Dan Coe. And
Oh,
so
okay. Okay. I know
yeah,
that. I know
yeah.
that guy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I was looking at the stuff they were doing, and I was like, this is not like so different from what I'm doing, and they're making more money than me. I was like, this is silly. I
Mm.
was like, what am I doing? And I kind of had like a slap in the face, because I was like, they're like Dakota had his whole thing was like growing X accounts, right? Like on Twitter when the algorithm was great. And then this girl Laura Costa like grew her brand on LinkedIn to like 150,000 followers, which is massive, right? Because it's like LinkedIn, you just think
Yeah.
it's for business, but people are actually on this platform every day using it like Instagram. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I think I landed on a gold mine here. Because a lot of our clients, like they didn't know about LinkedIn, they didn't know the potential of it. Um, and so that was really cool to like get into that industry and kind of like have my eyes opened again in another sense of like how something so simple can also make you a lot of money. And so everything just kind of worked out. We started working on client projects together because I had referred him clients, and then he had referred me clients, and then we were like, we should just work together because this makes sense. Um, and so he's really good at like the stuff that I don't like to do. And I'm good at the stuff that he doesn't like to do or like he's lacking in. And it's a good partnership. Like we balance each other out for
Mm.
sure. And we both bring something to the table because I think he likes the content a little more than I do. And I like strategy. So
Cool. That's cool. Wow. So like it all came together, and I think it's like that. You gotta be consistent, and you gotta have the stability, and you gotta like last long enough that you're able to find those moments where things really work out. Like I had a client that I wanted to do some work for, and I knew it would be a $5,000 a month retainer, but they weren't ready. And it's like, thank goodness I had other work, and I was stable that I could wait 6 months until they were ready. Because I told them like, we're not ready for this right now. They said, yeah, we're not ready. But like if I'd closed them, I might have lost them in a month. But meanwhile, I was able to like not you know rush to get the income, but like wait for the right moment. And when the right moment hit, it like all came together. Signed the client, now 5K a month for writing a daily email, and it was like a great client. I like had a lot of fun. Same thing with the dojo. Like with the dojo, I did decide like no matter what the situation, I was just gonna start. I remember back in 2021, it was like our first call was January 5th. I was like, I'm starting on January 5th. We had just arrived in South Africa from Canada. Like I just moved back to South Africa, and it was like I was jet lagged. I had 4 clients. I was burnt out. Like I'd barely been able to work that week because I was traveling and like moving my whole life to South Africa. But I was like, I decided a few months ago, I'm having this call. I set it for that date. I'm having the call. And it's like you got to have a combination of the two, where it's like you see the opportunity because you've been in the game long enough that you see the right moment. But then it's like you got to actually jump on it too, right? Like you got to jump on it. And I know you did a few things to do that. Like you stepped down from a position that you had to like taking up a lot of your time, right? You had to make some changes to the way you were serving your current clients. you had to technically like reduce your income in some parts of your business in order so that you could close clients, right? So like you got to move when you see that opportunity, you know you want that thing, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. Success does love speed. It also loves calculated speed, right? So it's like it's definitely it's understanding to like, you know, it's kind of like what we talked about on our calls, like what do you want your business to look like? Like what does your ideal work day look like? Like what kind of deals do you want to close? Um, and I think if you can structure your business in a way where it's like, your earning potential is uncapped outside of like a monthly retainer, um, it makes it even more rewarding. And then on top of that, if you're picky about who you work with, um, it's even better because now you have clients that are friends and you both are making money, and
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna trust you to take on more parts of the business too. Because again, like even with these growth partnership deals, like we still have to build trust, and that's something that we did with like the lead magnet launch that we had, where I took the initiative to like just add an upsell page in there regardless, because I was like, I want the client to understand like we have their best interest in heart, and like we're very protective of our client.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, calculated risks are really important. I've learned that like in this agency, you know, I've had conversations with my business partner where I'm like, they're like, oh well, I'm gonna like, he's been like a little more passive, and I'm like, no, like we need to talk to them like tomorrow
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
If we don't, someone else might come in and try to talk to them, because it's again, you just learn how this industry works, right? But then again, there's
Yeah.
like a time and place for things. Like I'm sure the client that you held off working with, I'm sure they really respected you doing that, because like it showed that you genuinely cared about their business, and they're always going to remember that. And you're going to be the first person that they go to when they're ready.
Yeah. That's what happened, right? So they were like, well, appreciate the transparency. Like most people would have sent us a payment link and signed us up already, but like you're just tells me that you genuinely care about us. That's pretty much what they said. And it's like, yeah, I don't think you have the opportunity to do that if you don't have a situation where you create some stability. And I think that's why a lot of copywriters that are hustling, they don't get the opportunities to do these things because they're always they're always one paycheck away from being from struggling again. Like they don't, or they're overworked to the point where they can't see an opportunity. So it's like by going a little bit slower, by saying like because I could have been at, I don't know, what was I back then? I was at like, yeah, with my copywriting it was like I was at like 20K or something. So like I could have taken on a client, I would have been at like 25K. With just the copy, it would have been great. But it's like I'm okay with staying at 20K, something, it was something like that. And I was like, I'm okay with staying at 20K. And like other copywriters were like, oh, this is my opportunity to hit 25K. I'm like almost at 30K. Because I know that's like a big goal, like 25K, 30K is like, copywriters is like 10K is the first big goal because it's 6 figures, right? Then it's like 25, 30K because now it's like you're making good money. And then after that, it's like 50K and then like $1 million a year and stuff. But like people want to rush to that number. And I've seen this with one copywriter, like constantly at 20K, 25K, just like kind of floats around there because he just can't seem to create better opportunities. Because again, like he's always saying yes to deals before they're ready. He's not setting the deal up correctly for himself. He's overworked and he never finds the time for the next step because of that. And it's like you just need to slow down. And like, yeah, you might slow down a little bit, but then hey, like, in your situation, you got a client that's coming in now that could be the biggest client that you've worked with. It like could change completely everything. And if you're too busy, you're too overworked, you're hustling too much, you can't say yes to that deal because you're not ready for the deal. And that's the worst thing, is because when the business owner's ready for the deal, you better be ready for the deal because they're not going to wait. It's like when they're ready for it, it's like within a week they want to sign up somebody and they want to get going. And it's like you better be ready to say yes that week. It's like if you stall, then a week from now, they're not ready anymore. So I have a question for you about like the transition when you decided that it was time to do the agency work. Like from an aspirational standpoint, it makes total sense. It's like when you see the opportunity, you want to go for it. But there's a lot of people that struggle with like letting go of the thing that they're already doing because it produces like a sense of security and safety. And like I've also struggled with that, where it's like I want to do this other thing. I want to, like, let's say, coach more, but I don't want to let go of the copywriting client. I know I should probably let this deal go, but like I'm attached to that deal. How did you know you were ready to let, like, how did you know you were ready, completely ready to like let the, or maybe not completely, but just like let the client or let the thing you're working on go and move on?
I felt like I had learned a lot, and I felt like there was just a moment where I felt like I was um I don't want to say like an outsider looking in, but I was looking at like Brian and his business partner Cole, and again, they're amazing people, but there was like a part of me where I was watching what they did and the impact they had on people. And then I was seeing their clients crush it. And I was like,
Mm.
I was like, I'm kind of like jealous. I'll be completely honest. I was like, I'm jealous. And like, I feel like if they can do this, I can do this. Because I think I'll be completely transparent. I struggled with a lot of like self-confidence and like belief in myself. And I feel like, I got this role, even though I wasn't super confident. I don't know how it happened, but I got this role. And then I was like, I think I'm ready now. Like, I feel like I'm ready. I'm gonna like, I have all the support I need. So I'm not scared. And I feel like I'm doing this right for the first time, because when I'd been a freelancer before, I was that freelancer that was hustling because I didn't set myself up for success to where, um, I could still improve my skills without being in a catch 22 of like, shoot, I need another client. Like, I need another client, you know? And so now I felt like I was in a better place. I had enough experience under my belt where I felt confident in actually doing like percentage based deals, you know, like
Mm.
that's,
Mm.
and even talking about it now, like it doesn't really feel like a big deal, because it's like, yeah, that's what we do, you know? But I think it really just comes down to like confidence and self-belief, as cheesy as that is. But I do think like copywriters in general, like we're kind of weird. And I feel like we can be a little bit of like introverts. And so I feel like it's again, it's a hard industry, and like you really have to celebrate your wins and like make sure that you are your biggest fan, and just believing like
Mm.
you
Mm.
can literally do whatever you want. And sometimes you do need that kick in the ass of like, hey, these other people are doing it and you're not. Because I feel like that's a big wake up call, because it wasn't just Brian and Cole, it was seeing like Dan Coe and like Dakota Robertson. And I was like, they're not even writing like direct response based copy. And I was like, and I'm not like hating on them whatsoever. They're both like really good at what they do. But I felt a little robbed, because I was like, I've spent all this time hustling, trying to get good at DR, and like there's people out here like making like 50K a month just from writing content for other people. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? I got angry.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I've had enough of this.
That's good. I think that might be the way to go then. It's like if you get to the point where you decide, all right, it's time to make more money. I'm tired of watching all these other people make money, you know. I think it's similar to what happened to me, you know, like now that I think about it the way that you say it, it's like I work with a few clients that were like business coaches, because I'm like coaching now copywriters, right? And it's like, oh, these business coaches, they're like, you know, coaches, and they're running their business, and I'm like thinking to myself like I would do this, and then it's like I suggested, and they like kind of don't want to do that way. I'm like, I really think we should have done it that way, and it doesn't work for them, and I'm like kind of annoyed. I didn't like, hey, look, I'm like in the marketing team, like I've seen this, like we should have done that, you know. And like it happened so many times, I got to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm tired of giving feedback. Like even as a consultant, people were paying me like tens of thousands of dollars for like calls every single week, one-on-one call, and I would consult them, and I would tell them, like, not tell them what to do, but I would give them suggestions, and they wouldn't implement the suggestions, and it would get me to the point where I'm like kind of irritated. I'm like, these guys are creating such an impact, and they're not even following like some of the foundational strategy, like basic marketing tactics, and they're making millions coaching people. Like, I would just really like to use the things I'm suggesting and like prove it works. Like, I'll just use it for myself then. If you don't want to do it, I'll just use it for me. And
Yeah.
like, I'll create a coaching, I'll create a coaching offer and help people in the way I want to help. Like, I want you to help your clients. So I think it is, that's why I quite like the personal branding and coaching side of copywriting, because if you're a copywriter, you get to learn how to do business from your clients through osmosis. Whereas if you're doing e-com copy or other copy, like, you don't always get to see that. But in our space, it's like while you write every single day, you're developing yourself. You're like working on your mindset as you write copy that helps the reader work on their mindset. So I really like that. It's like I felt like I got like a whole business education while writing copy for my clients. But yeah, like you said, it really makes sense. Really makes sense that it is about confidence, and it is about that point where you just realize like you can do this too. Yeah. And so I guess it's worked out for you pretty well then.
It's yeah, I mean, I'd say it's working. Everything, I feel like sometimes you just kind of have to go through those periods so you can just grow and develop into, you know, a better person, a better entrepreneur. Like, and I think a big thing for me too is like I get bored really quickly. So like I need something that's always going to challenge me, and I can do multiple
Mm-hmm.
things. And so it's like, um, I feel like having that makes my work really enjoyable for me. That's not going to be for everyone, but I like that I can write content if I want to, or I can write emails, or like my business partner probably wouldn't like this, but if I want to design like an email banner because I love graphic design, like
Mm-hmm.
I can do that. Like I have the freedom to do all these different things. And it's really cool. And so I think again to your point as well, like working with these people and like seeing how much leverage they have with the personal brand, like as a marketer, um, I I love that. So, and it's obviously it's always super cool to write as the person because you get to be someone that you're usually not, so to speak. It's
Mm-hmm.
like putting on a character. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of people do enjoy it. Yeah. I think a lot of people that are watching this are going to probably want to build an agency now. So maybe there's like a couple of disclaimers or like warnings that you might give them, because I'm sure if you had tried to start an agency earlier on, it might not have worked the same way before you had the skills. I think, like you said earlier in our chat, is like everything all came together at the right time. And a lot of copywriters I've worked with, they'll tell me, I'm going to start an agency. Copywriting is a means to an end. I'm going to start an agency. And I often say to them, like, they say, how do I start an agency? I say, well, from my perspective, it's like you start an agency when you have too many clients. It's not like, oh, today I'm an agency. It's like most of the time it's like you close too many clients, then you hire somebody to help you, and next thing you have a team of people helping you. It's not like this thing where it's like, oh, I'm a copywriter. Tomorrow I'm calling myself an agency and branding myself as an agency. It's like, it's still you, Jasmine, right? You're still the person that they're like reaching out to, or your business partner. It's like, it's not now that you're hiding behind a brand. Even though you have a brand, it's like, it works together, right? So,
it's yeah, so yeah, like me and my business partner, we started working on projects together, right? And then it was like, oh, do you want to do this with me, or do you want to do this with me? And it was like, then we started getting all this work and we had all these opportunities, and it's like, okay, well, I guess we're an agency now, so
guess we're an agency. Yeah, yeah, that's how it works. Just, I guess we're an agency now. So all the people trying to force an agency, just remember that, okay, please, because you don't you don't make an agency. Like, kind of, the agency kind of makes you, right? So
yeah, just chill.
yeah,
It's
just chill.
and even before you start an agency too, like it again, like focusing on the fundamentals is so important. Like I could have not had this agency without my experience in um selling high ticket services, writing copy, writing SOPs, because I had to write SOPs as a marketing director, something I had never done before, but I got really good at it really quick. You know, and just like all these other different skills where I had to like be more than just like a copywriter. But obviously, when you have an agency, you're usually selling like one core service, and you're really good at it, right? Like that's the entire goal, is to sell like at least like one core service and just be really good at it. And then I think too, like, once you get good at that, you can start branching out. Um, and then you can go into the agency thing. Because like realistically, like you don't really need to hire anyone until like you're probably like 5 clients deep and you want to scale. Because in my personal opinion, like I think you should be doing everything, because that's the only way to get good at it. Obviously, focus on copy, but like when I first started out with my first mentor, like I was the one building the funnels. I didn't even know what a
Mm.
ClickFunnels was, but my main focus was copy. But then I started building out the funnels because I really enjoyed it. And my mentor was like, "You're pretty good at this," and I was like, "Thank you." you know. So
Mhm.
it's yeah, again, like I think back to your point, it's kind of a long-winded answer here, but what I've noticed in general is like you don't have to force things that are meant to happen. Like this agency was meant to happen, and I just know it was, and it was never my intention to do it. But because like my intentions were to have no cap on my income, do things that I enjoy doing, and have a variety of different types of work, it just happened to work out that way, Brian Mark, like I intended him to be my client, but I wasn't being like all those other copywriters in his inbox that are like sending multiple emails after they submit samples. Like I was very detached, even though I needed the money, but I was super detached. And that was one thing that they really liked about me, and I got it. I didn't
Mm.
even want the marketing director position, and it was offered to me. So I just think like good things, like you don't need to force them. You do need to work hard, but you don't need to force anything. It'll happen if it's supposed to happen. So maybe it sounds a little cheesy.
No, I think that's what people need to hear a lot of the time. I think a lot of this is like it is in your control to the extent of how much work you put in and like your ability to learn and take the opportunity. But there is a lot of randomness involved, and the sooner you start opening yourself up to those opportunities that come like to you and like you're receptive to them, then you start to get results. Like my very first massive client that I closed, I really didn't think I would get the position. I like almost disqualified myself before even trying, you know, because I was like, oh, like they wouldn't accept, like, because I was applying to a job that they posted like 8 months before, previous, like 8 months earlier, it was like 8 months old already. And my friend was like, yeah, apply. Like, of course they're gonna say like looking for copywriters still. I'm like, nah, of course not. Like it's 8 months ago. They found somebody. I think they did find somebody. I don't remember the story, but I think they found somebody, and like the guy left after 3 months. It didn't work out, and then they never really found somebody after that. So I was like, I'll apply anyway. But I really put my heart into that application. I spent like a good 6-7 hours writing up a one-page Google Doc sales letter of why I think I'm the right fit. And 3 weeks didn't hear from them, and then the fourth week suddenly the like timing, something happened somewhere. Somebody saw a post of mine that was in the team and it's like, oh, this is a copywriter, didn't we see his application the other day? Suddenly they pull up the application and they're like, oh yeah, it's this guy. And then they're like, I liked his headline. I've never written the sales letter, but like I like his headline. He's a good headline, he must be a good writer. And then they put me on a project and they were like, you know what, most copywriters that do this project, only one of their emails gets approved. There's 10, only one. You expect to be bad. I put everything into that project, like everything into those first 10, and they approved all 10. So they were like quite surprised, you know? And it's like, I was a bit surprised that it was such a low approval rate. I think people just didn't really put any effort into their work almost, because it wasn't like, if you're a decent writer and English is your first language, I think most people could have done a pretty good job if they just applied themselves, you know? So anyway, that's kind of like a bit of a tangent, but like, you know, get the opportunity, but like it's the work that makes it happen at the end of the day. It's like you're applying yourself, and then like from there, I also got offered positions and just kind of kept going from there. So I really resonate with your experience on it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like we have a similar background. I think I have more agency like experience, but you've worked with a team before,
Yeah.
And even now, like what I'm starting to do, it's pretty similar to how you got like not started, but how your like copywriting career kicked off because you started doing coaching, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And live masterclasses and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
which is super, super fun. But
Yeah, I started with coaching like within the team as well. So like I wasn't working with agencies, but I was working in-house for a big company so that we produced agency amounts of copy, So it was like I was working a lot of hours and I would start coaching people within the team, and then the team had clients that started coaching. And so like a lot of the skills that you need, because I never ever thought I would ever be coaching. I never wanted to be in front of a camera. I could not speak in front of people. I was put in front of 200 people to speak, and I was umming and ahhing and like very awkward, and I still have like cringe moments. I remember like when I got started, I was like, all right guys, let's get started, and I was like and I was like, oh, how could I say that, in front of all these people? It sounds so cringy, and like I didn't know what the follow-up sentence was because no one else is speaking. So it was just a lot of awkward on stage moments, but people liked it. People still liked. I got results. People kept attending my calls, and I was like, all right, well, my client likes me, still paying me, surprisingly. People are still on my calls, surprisingly. Maybe I'm okay at coaching. So then like I got into it, and I think it's the same thing. Like I never planned to be a business coach, like a copy coach. I never planned. It wasn't like a long-term vision. It was just I saw the people that were benefiting from my work, and like they loved coaching, and I was like, oh, I'm going to help a few people. I helped a few people, they got results. I helped a few more people, I helped a few more people. Suddenly, I'm a coach, So I feel like, there's a really great way, I think, to wrap up what we've chatted about today. Is like, you keep applying yourself to the skills, be curious, and then like, over time, those skills will lead you to the thing that I think is meant to be the thing that you can do at scale for people,
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Don't and enjoy it, like genuinely enjoy it, don't just do it. I think like now there's a lot of copywriters who get in this just to make a bunch of money, and we've seen them, and they're not gonna last, right? Because this is something I think is just very different, where you actually need to enjoy it because it's really hard. And if you don't enjoy it, you're going to want to quit, and you're not going to last. And then you're probably going to go try ecom, and then you're going to realize you still need to know how to write copy for ecom. So it's like, regardless though, like it's, actually enjoy the process. Don't try to get ahead of yourself, and always put your best foot forward. Like, make sure you're always trying to just get better every single day. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I think that's a wrap. Well, thanks so much for sharing all the secrets and showing us how to build an agency. And we'll have to have another chat again soon. Thanks so much, Jasmine. Appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you, Matthew. Talk soon.